Playing stretch res in CSGO has a ton of benefits. FPS boosts that are literally insane. Personally, to me, it just feels a lot smoother, which we'll talk about later in this video, and a vast majority of pros use 4x3 stretch. So in this video, first I'm going to show you guys how to play on 4x3 stretch both on AMD and nvidia graphics cards, and then we'll get into the benefits. So as always, if you do enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And quickly, before we get into it, be sure to check out the sponsor, Skin Club. Skin Club is a CSGO case opening site with over 100 unique cases, a battle game mode, and my personal favorite, with much better odds than the CSGO case opening system, the upgrade system. Today I did a not so risky trade up, 64% chance to upgrade from an Emperor to a StatTrak Op Atheris, and thankfully hit it because I was not running too good the other day, but we're about break even now. Also, it's all of course provably fair, so you know you're not getting ripped off. So if you are 18 or older, which you have to be to play on the site, be sure to sign up with that link in the description to get a 7% bonus on your first deposit, and of course gamble responsibly. But for now, let's get right into the video. So first of all, let me just show you guys how to play on 4x3 stretched. It's really simple. If you're on nvidia, right click on your desktop, go to adjust desktop size and position, and I believe it's set to aspect ratio by default. All you got to do is change that to full screen and your game will no longer have black bars on the side, and it will be completely stretched to fit the entire screen. Also, when you're here, for the love of God, make sure your monitor is set to the correct refresh rate so you didn't pay hundreds of dollars for a 144 or 240Hz monitor and have it set to 60Hz. But yeah, if you don't own an nvidia graphics card and you want to do it on AMD, there are a couple of steps you have to do for that. This is the most recent article I could find, so hopefully everything is up to date. There's a lot of steps, so I'm just going to leave this on screen for a few seconds and link the article down in the description if you have any trouble, but from what I've seen, this has been working for everybody, so be sure to check that out. But next up, let's talk about why you should even use 4x3 stretched. I've been using it since I started playing this game, and I've got almost 6,000 hours, and I'm honestly so used to it that I use it in every first-person shooter that I play, and the benefits do carry on over to other first-person shooters, which I'll go over in this video. So even in Valorant, TF2, Warzone, Overwatch, I don't think people play that game anymore, but either way, 4x3 really has a lot of benefits. Don't just take it from me either. Vast majority of pros don't play on native either. A lot of them choose to use stretched, with a pretty decent amount doing black bars as well, which might be a surprise if you don't follow the pro scene too closely. So what is the actual reason for it? Well, first of all, to a lot of players, it just makes the game feel quicker and more smooth or fluid. Since playing stretched res of course stretches all the player models and other pixels on your screen, this causes the game to just feel faster and the models to look bigger as well, even though they obviously aren't actually bigger, it just looks like that. Now, of course, since your resolution is lower when you play on stretched res, the game has to make up for that by using the lower resolution to stretch it across the screen. So you won't be seeing as much as you would on 16:9 or 16:10 compared to 4:3. This graphic from esports.com shows a really good job of that, although it does seem pretty major, and lowering your res takes away vision on both sides of your screen. As someone who has once again played this game for almost 6,000 hours, it really is not that big of a deal at all, and you will very rarely die or be caught in a sticky situation from not being able to see these parts on your screen. The only real things that it will affect are if you're holding a tight angle like behind a shelf in Market on Mirage, you will have to look a little bit more to the left instead of directly into the wall to be able to see if somebody walks past you, but still your gun isn't going to stick out, so once again, not really a big deal. As you could see, it really barely makes a difference. And what's probably the biggest reason to change off of higher res and play on stretched or at least black bars is FPS. Just hopping into the FPS benchmark test, I first tested my frames on 1920 by 1080 and got an average of only 370 FPS, which is pretty low for me. Then, as you can see by the console, so I'm obviously not faking this, I switched to 1280 by 960 and averaged 488 FPS, so over 100 FPS difference if you switch off 16:9. Obviously, that's going to vary based on how much FPS you get. I mean, by default, how good your PC is. I've got a pretty decent PC. It's around $1,000 probably. So If your PC is cheaper, it could definitely make a big help as well. If you're averaging like 60 FPS, you could very well get to over 100 by doing this if you were playing on native and switching to a lower resolution, which I absolutely recommend. When I had a really bad PC, I was getting like 20 FPS in this game. It was crashing really often, and my laptop was literally overheating, burning my legs. Those were back in the good days, back when I first started playing CS, and that was absolutely awful. So please, if your FPS is awful, if your laptop is setting your legs on fire from putting it there, try and lower your resolution, see if that helps out a bit. But either way, let's move on. What are some of the drawbacks of 4x3 stretched? Well, a lot of people will argue that sensitivity is different when you switch res, and it surprisingly isn't at all, but it does absolutely feel different. So it's a bit weird to get used to, especially if you change res a lot. Even if it's just between different 4x3 resolutions or between 16:9 or 4x3, it will feel a lot different. I recommend just sticking with a res, sticking with a scent, and staying on that. A lot of people will argue that it's harder to see people on 4x3 since you've obviously got less pixels. People tend to blend in more, especially in CS where everything's kind of a mundane color and the agent models can blend in with that. I do agree with this. At times, it is harder to see people, especially if they're behind mollies and you haven't messed with any of the Molotov smoke settings, but if you do adjust those, and I really do recommend doing that, because if you just look up how to make mollies brighter in CSGO, good videos will come up. I made one many years ago. It is really helpful, and if you're on 4x3 and haven't changed that, it can be hard to see people. If you do change it, won't be too hard at all. So I do recommend doing that. Beyond that, there's very few times that you're just not gonna see somebody because you're playing on a lower res. The only real thing I could think of off the top of my head is trying to fight like CT spawn by elevator on Dust 2 to pit. With a rifle, it's a bit difficult to see somebody if they're solely head glitching along with some other angles, but beyond that, I really can't think of anything off the top of my head that's not just a really weird head glitch angle, and even then, you can definitely see the person. Once again, it just takes some getting used to, and you will absolutely get used to it if you play on stretch res for not even that long of a time. But beyond that, there really isn't too much to say. If you've been playing on native your whole CS career, I absolutely recommend trying out stretched. Some people like it, some people don't, but it definitely grows on you. Definitely has FPS benefits, and I have not gone back to 16:9 in thousands of hours. Even in other games, it will help your FPS. Even though your game will look worse because you're stretching all the pixels. Once again, you just get used to it. I really recommend it. I think you guys should try it out as well, especially on lower end PCs. But for now, I think that is going to wrap it up for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.